Okay, now it's time to talk about filters. Filters are a very important aspect of sound design. If you've heard the term subtractive synthesis, it is thus named because you are starting off with a sound generated by an oscillator, and then you're literally subtracting elements of that harmonic makeup using filters. Okay, so it's a very important part of sound design and synthesis. So at this stage in the course, we're going to look at filters, what they do, how they work. We're also going to talk about the different types of filters and what that means. And then we're going to look into how to apply filters when you're designing your sounds. So we're going to get into a little bit of the modulation, source, and target stuff that we're going to get into later. So if that blows past you a little bit, don't get too hung up on it because we're going to talk all about modulation sources later. I just want to indicate that we are going to start using this technique to explain how filters work. Okay, so let's get right into this. So as I mentioned, with subtractive synthesis, filters are literally filtering out harmonically rich sounds that are generated with the oscillator and sculpting it out. And that's actually a good analogy. You can think of it as a sculptor taking a block of marble and sculpting it into something that's pleasing to the eye. So similarly, a filter is taking the raw audio of the oscillator and sculpting away to something that is pleasing to the ear. Okay, Massive comes with two filter buses. They're up here in the top center, filter 1 and filter 2. In a later lecture, we're going to talk more about the routing capabilities of filters, series and parallel. But for now, let's just look at the filters themselves. So these are activated, and once again, you can activate or deactivate them by clicking this circle next to the header. Then you also have a drop-down menu that will pull up all the available filter types. Low pass 4, and by the way, that number 4 just means the number of poles, so 4-pole filter, 2-pole filter, for example. We'll get into that in greater detail in just a moment here. So if I select one of these filters, these knobs have headings. You can tell this middle knob does not have a heading. It's not applicable, but for other filters, such as the band reject, now this middle knob has a bandwidth heading. So all of these are adjustable, automatable, and you can also assign them to you can also assign modulation sources to them, as you can see by these modulation slots here. So both filter 1 and 2 are exactly the same. They offer the same capabilities, but you just have two of them. So one way to think about filters is to use an analogy of a sieve, in which you would, sift out sand. So the filter is like the sieve, and the sound enters that sieve, and it lets some of the items go through, and some of the items are prevented from going through. Well, the filter does the same thing. It allows some frequencies to go through and others not to. And we'll talk more about that in the next lecture, and also some of the other filter capabilities. See you there.